Previously, Bobby Fisherman and his friends solved the horse's chess puzzle and gained the help of the old man and the horse, taking them to Crystal Caves. About halfway to the caves, the old man and the horse bid them farewell and pointed the fisherman in the correct direction. They continued down the path and eventually came to an old wooden rope bridge. It didn't look super sturdy, but they decided to give it a shot and attempted to cross the bridge. When they were about halfway across, a bandit came out of nowhere and appeared on the other side of the bridge. The bandit said, "Stop right there or I will cut this rope bridge down. This island is only for exceptional chess players, and I have a feeling that you don't belong here. If you can't solve this puzzle correctly, I'm cutting this bridge down." And with that, he presented them with the following puzzle. The bandit said, "This is the position. It's white to play and win the game. White's pawn is going forward. Black's pawns are going down this way. How does white win?" Now, before I tell you what the fisherman said, if you would like to pause and figure it out on your own, go ahead and do that, and then we'll talk about the solution. Well, if you had a chance to look at that, here's what they discussed. The first fisherman said, "Isn't this an easy win? We simply push our pawn, escaping both of Black's pawns. We push it all the way, get a queen, and Black's king is too far to stop us." At this point, the second fisherman said, "Aha, but you forgot about a very clever move en passant. Black would simply take our pawn, and yes, we could take these with our bishop, but that's not going to be good enough to win the game. A lone king and bishop against the king cannot win. So we have to watch out for a3 and a4 because both of those moves, our pawn gets captured. We have to somehow avoid trading pawns." And at this point, the second fisherman said, "I think I see the answer, and I don't think it's that difficult. We simply bring our bishop around and start hunting these pawns down, because once we capture these pawns, we'll be able to push our pawn, get a queen, and it's a relatively easy win." At this point, Bobby spoke up and said, "Wait a second, you're missing something important. If we go for this line, watch what Black is going to do. They're going to bring their king forward. We can go hunt down these pawns, but Black's going to continue to bring the king, even sacrificing them. There's a fork here with check. And then they're going to play king to c4. And at this point, the second fisherman was scratching his head saying, "Wait a second, we have a pawn, we have a bishop. Can't we just save our bishop? And isn't this an easy win?" Bobby said, "No, it's not. And there is a reason why." If you guys would like to pause, why is this not an easy win for white? Well, if you had a chance to look at that, the reason it's not an easy win for white, and actually it's a draw, believe it or not, is because of the color that this square is. It's a white square, and notice that this bishop is on a dark square. Now, some of you have already seen this, and you know what I'm talking about. You know that this is a draw, and some of you are going to have a hard time believing what I'm about to tell you. But there's actually no way to push this pawn and get a queen, even with a bishop and a king to help you. It's amazing, but watch what happens. I'll go ahead and show you. Let's just say we tried to bring our king up. We tried to bring our king up. We tried to bring our king up. And at some point we said, okay, let's start pushing my pawn and trying to get a queen. All Black has to do is put the king in the corner and then go back and forth. And there's no way that we can ever force them out of the corner because our bishop is on the wrong color. So, for example, we try to come up, we push the pawn, and if we ever try to use this bishop to help out, it's a stalemate. The king can't move anywhere, right? Even if we would have done it on the previous move, like right here, check, the king still goes there. And again, we can't leave it. Like if we push the pawn, it's also a stalemate. There's really nothing that we can do to force the king out of the corner, and that's the problem, right? Even if we, let's just say, let me try a different line here. Instead of using the bishop, maybe we try to use the king, right? But the same thing, the king goes up, and eventually you either have to give the king some breathing room to move back and forth, or you have to get a stalemate, and there's nothing better that you can do. Check, and if this would be the best that you can do, it's a stalemate. So, crazy endgame position. This is actually a well-known endgame where you have the king and the pawn and the bishop, but it's the wrong color. If this were flipped and it was over here with the pawn, then this bishop could control the corner square and you could win. Or if this bishop was on a light square, you could control the corner square and you could win. Okay, so a little bonus lesson for you there. But Bobby was correct in saying that that line is not good enough because Black simply makes a beeline for the king with the king and eventually, gets to the corner and it's a draw. So with that in mind, the fishermen were really perplexed until Bobby had a brilliant idea. What do you think Bobby's idea was to win the game? Well, if you had a chance to look at that, the move that he came up with was bishop to c3. Now, it's not a move that you probably considered, because why would we give up a bishop where a pawn could simply take us? Well, the first point is that if the pawn captures us, we are quite happy about that, because now this guy is clear to go. See, by sacrificing the bishop, we have created a path for the pawn. However, it's not that simple, because if we try to push the pawn right away, watch what black can do. King to f2. If we push, king to e3. If we push, c2, and black is now threatening to get their own queen. And if we try to stop it, they bring their king up, and actually black gets the queen first and wins the game. So we can't just ignore that. We have to actually take time to bring our king over to try to stop this. Again, same thing. And so really we had to do it earlier. So let's go back. Right here, we had to play king to b1. And then after king to e3, we had to blockade this pawn right away. The problem now is that look at this. King to d4, and black's king is actually in time to catch our pawn. See this? And the game is actually a draw. Okay, so it's not so simple. So what do we do after this happens? Well, if you had a chance to look at that, the move is king to b1. And here is what is going to happen. Black's going to do the same thing. We play king to c2. Black goes here. And we don't push the pawn still. We play king takes c3. And what we are doing is boxing out the king. We're not letting the king get to our pawn. And eventually, black can keep trying, but we're always going to keep moving up the board until we get right here. And that's when we start pushing our pawn. And now the pawn is gone. Black's king can't catch it. And we get the queen and we win. So very, very tricky line, right? You couldn't just start pushing it right away. You had to first box out the king. Now, black says, you know what? I'm not even going to take the bishop because I don't really care about that. The only thing I care about is getting my king to this corner, right? Even if I lose both of those pawns in the process, even if I allow white to have the bishop, who cares? That's the only thing that matters. So black says, I'm going to play king to f2. And now, if you would like to pause, how do we win here with white? If you had a chance to look at that, the move is, wait for it, bishop takes b4. And the problem is kind of the same thing as before. We can't push our pawn or he gets captured. And so even though, you know, we gave the option of black to take it, they didn't fall for the bait. What are we going to do? Well, we take the pawn, and now we are threatening to push this. But you might say, well, aren't we going to give up our bishop? Well, it's the same kind of thing. If they take, we can bring our king up, bring it up, capture, and again, black's king is boxed out. And it's the same thing that we saw before. They can walk all the way up the board, so can we, and black can't do anything. Now we can push our pawn, they can't catch it, and we win. All right. However, it's not over yet because black knows what's going on. And right here, they say, again, I don't care. I don't care about your bishop. The only thing I care about is bringing my king towards the corner. Because if I get there, I know it's a draw. So on king to e3, what do we do now to win the game? Well, if you had a chance to look at that, hopefully you didn't say bishop takes with check. Because even though it looks like a logical move, it allows black to do exactly what they want to do, bring the king over. And if we try to push, guess what? They're coming in with the king, and it's a draw. As soon as they get the king in front of the pawn, they go and hide in the corner, and we already looked at that, right? So going back here, instead of taking the pawn, you had to play the move, wait for it, a4. Now we push the pawn. And now if they take us, look at this. We can play a5, and notice the king is too far to stop the pawn. So black could try this, but they're not going to catch it in time. And then the other thing black could try would be to sort of zigzag towards this pawn, but it's just too slow, right? It's not going to happen in time. We get the queen, and you can see we win. All right. However, going back here, again, black's probably not going to take that. They're just going to keep bringing the king forward, king to d4. And after a5, black is going to go king to d5, and it looks like black is going to make it in time and get to the corner. So what do we need to do to win the game from this position? Well, if you had a chance to look at that, the move is a6. And of course, black is going to go for the king to c6, only way to try to catch the pawn. And now we have the incredible move, bishop to a5. And look at this. We have created a blockade with our bishop and our pawn. These squares are covered. The king can't go in. King can't go in. The only thing the king can do would be to try to come this way, but then our pawn is gone. Or the king could try to come this way, but then again, our pawn is gone because the king has stepped too far out of the way. Or black could try to waste a move by pushing this pawn. And now we have to be careful because if we push it, black will stop it. But instead of pushing it, what do? We just come over here because once this pawn is gone, black's going to be in Zugzwang where they have to move their king. So for example, and now they have to move the king away. They would like to be able to move towards the corner, except they can't because of the way we've set up our bishop and our pawn. It's incredible, and black could do this, and now we get the queen. That was the only way to win. Congratulations if you found that. At this point, the bandit, seeing that the fisherman did indeed solve the puzzle correctly, was quite impressed and said, "You're smarter than I gave you credit for. Go ahead and pass. I'll let you through, and you can continue on to the Crystal Caves." And that's where we'll pick up our story next time. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, stay sharp, play smart, and take care.